All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are talking about something really important and unfortunately pretty common these days, and that is IRS impersonation scams.
Yeah, these are unfortunately pretty pervasive.
They are. And I think it's great that you sent in this document because, it really does lay out everything that we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very thorough.
Okay, so let's sort of just dive right into it, I guess. The document starts out by, breaking down how these scams usually unfold. And it's kind of wild how the scammers have upped their game.
Hmm.
It used to be, just phone calls, but now they're using emails, they're using texts, any way they can to kind of get your attention.
It's true, and the techniques have gotten a lot more sophisticated. Like they use apps now to manipulate caller ID.
Oh, wow.
So you could see a number on your phone that looks like it's from the IRS, but it's completely fake.
That's scary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how can you even be sure these days who is calling you?
Right. And that's a great question, and we will definitely talk about that a little bit later on, how to, verify and make sure that it's legitimate.
Hmm.
But first, I think, to really understand how these scams work, we need to kind of follow along this progression. So
Mhm.
after that initial contact, whether it's a phone call, text, email, whatever, um, the scammer is typically going to hit you with this really urgent claim that you owe back taxes or that there's some huge problem with your return.
Right. And I think their goal at that point is just to get you flustered, to
Absolutely.
get you thinking irrationally.
Yeah, they want you to, kind of bypass that rational thinking part of your brain.
Right. And then, according to the document here, that's when the threats come in. They
Yeah.
start, throwing around audits, arrest warrants, or even frozen assets,
See,
like all this stuff.
it's all designed to, kind of put pressure on you,
Mm,
make you feel like you have to act immediately without, really stopping and thinking.
right. And that leads us, I guess, to the next stage, which is the demand for payment. And this is where it gets kind of comical to me because, the document mentions that they ask for payment in these totally outlandish ways, like gift cards or cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
I mean, who pays their taxes with an iTunes gift card?
Right. Well, it might sound ridiculous, but there's a reason behind it. And it really comes down to the fact that these methods are virtually untraceable.
Ah.
So, once you give them that gift card code or you send that wire transfer, that money's gone. It's very, very difficult for law enforcement to track it.
So it's not even just about getting the money, it's about making sure that they don't get caught.
Exactly. And I think, it's really important to understand that the IRS, they have very specific ways that they accept payments.
Yeah.
They're not going to pressure you into making an immediate payment over the phone.
Hmm.
They have their own online system. They accept checks, they accept money orders,
Yeah.
and they also, will accept debit card or credit card payments, but it's through an authorized third-party processor.
Mm.
So they're never going to demand payment through these unconventional methods.
Okay. So we've kind of covered the initial tactics, the threats, the demands. Is there anything else that they try to do at this stage?
Yeah, there's one more thing that the document highlights, and that is that they'll try to get you to give them personal information, like your social security number or your bank account details, or even, things like your mother's maiden name.
Oh, that's right. I do remember reading about that. But isn't that kind of obvious? I mean, wouldn't people know better than to just hand that information over the phone?
Yeah, you would think so, but you'd be surprised. Remember, they're playing on your fear and your anxiety. So, if you're already in that heightened state of mind and someone claiming to be from the IRS is asking for this information, it's very easy to just blurt it out without thinking.
That's a good point. It's like they're trying to catch you in that moment of weakness when you're not really thinking clearly.
Exactly. And what's even more insidious is that, this isn't always a one-and-done kind of scam.
Mm.
Often, once they have you on the hook, they'll try to come back for more with claims of, additional debts or problems with the initial payment. So it can become a really vicious cycle. But the good news is, now that we're talking about it and we're kind of walking through step by step how the scam works, you're already in a much better position to protect yourself.
So now that we understand their playbook, I guess the question is, what are the signs that, what are the warning signs that we should be looking out for? Like, how do we know for sure that it's a scam and not the real IRS calling?
Yeah, so that's where those red flags come in. And luckily, your document actually does a great job of listing these out. It's like a checklist.
Okay, yeah, walk me through that checklist. What are the biggest red flags that this is a scam?
Well, one of the most obvious ones is that they'll demand immediate payment.
Mm.
The scammer will try to create this sense of urgency, telling you that you need to pay right now or face serious consequences. like an arrest warrant or something.
So basically, they're hoping that you'll just panic and not think straight.
Exactly. The real IRS, they have a very specific process.
Okay.
They'll always send official notices by mail first, and you have the right to appeal. You can question anything that you disagree with. So it's not this like high-pressure pay now or else situation that the scammers try to portray.
Got it. Okay, so no snap decisions when it comes to your taxes. What else should we be wary of?
Another big one is unusual payment methods. Like we talked about before, the IRS does not accept payments through gift cards or wire transfers or cryptocurrency.
Right.
Those are all methods that scammers prefer because they're hard to trace.
It's wild to me that people even think that they could pay their taxes with like an Amazon gift card.
I know it sounds crazy,
Yeah.
but it happens.
Oh.
And that's why it's so important to, be aware of these things and to spread the word. Okay. Another red flag is threats and intimidation.
Oh, yeah, they love to throw around those legal terms.
Right. Arrest warrant, asset seizure, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all designed to scare you.
Yeah.
But just remember, legitimate legal action, it takes time. The IRS is not going to threaten you over the phone with immediate arrest. There's a whole process that has to be followed.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. It's easy to forget that when you're in that moment and someone's yelling at you about jail time.
Absolutely. This next one might seem a little less serious,
Mhm.
but the document actually mentions poor grammar and spelling as a possible sign of a scam.
Really? So like typos and grammatical errors?
Yeah, it's not a foolproof method, but it could be a clue. Official communications from the IRS are generally very carefully written. They're reviewed and they're professional. So if you get an email or a text and it's just full of mistakes, that could be a sign that it's not legit.
That's a really good point. I never would have thought of that.
And of course, we can't forget about caller ID spoofing, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
Technology allows scammers to make it look like they're calling from a legitimate IRS number when they're really not.
So even if it looks official, it could still be a trap.
Exactly. Never rely solely on caller ID to verify who's calling. If you have any doubts at all, hang up and call the IRS directly using the number on their official website.
Okay, so far we've got demands for immediate payment, unusual payment methods, threats, bad grammar, and caller ID spoofing. Anything else to add to this checklist?
Yes, one more, and this is really important. Be very cautious about any requests for personal information over the phone.
Yeah.
The real IRS already has your social security number. They have your address, all that stuff.
Right, so they wouldn't need to ask for it.
Exactly. So if someone claiming to be from the IRS is asking you for sensitive information like that over the phone, huge red flag. It's most likely a phishing attempt to steal your identity.
Okay, so we've got a pretty solid list of warning signs now. But let's say, worst case scenario. Someone does fall victim to one of these scams. What should they do next?
Well, first of all, I would say don't panic.
Yeah.
I know that's easier said than done.
Right.
But it's really important to keep a clear head. These scammers, they really thrive on fear and confusion. So the more composed you are, the better you'll be able to handle the situation.
So what can you do? Like, what are the actual steps that you can take to kind of mitigate the damage?
Well, the document has some good advice.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, if you're on the phone with someone and you think it's a scam, just hang up.
Okay.
Don't engage with them.
Yeah.
Don't try to argue. Don't give them any information. Just end the call.
Right.
Same thing with emails or texts. Don't respond. Just cut off all contact.
Okay, so step one, disengage. What's next?
The next step is verification. If you have any doubt at all that a call or an email or a text is really from the IRS, you need to reach out to the IRS directly. But don't use any of the contact information that the scammer gave you.
Right, because that could be fake too.
Exactly. Go to the official IRS website, irs.gov, and you can find the correct contact information there. So you can call them. You can verify any tax debts or issues that you might have through their secure channels.
Got it. Verify, verify, verify. What else should people do after they've been targeted, even if they didn't actually fall for the scam?
I would say it's really important to report it.
Okay.
It might seem like a small thing, but it can actually make a big difference. Reporting these scams helps law enforcement to, track patterns and hopefully prevent other people from becoming victims.
So where should people report these scams?
Well, you can report it directly to the IRS on their website. They have a phishing report form. And you can also file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC.
Okay, so we've got hanging up, verifying with the real IRS, and reporting the scam. Now, what about protecting your finances and your identity? Like, what can people do there?
Yeah, that's where you got to be proactive.
Yeah.
So after you've, dealt with a potential scam, it's always a good idea to monitor your bank accounts and your credit card statements really carefully just to make sure that there aren't any unauthorized transactions.
Right.
And if you see anything that looks suspicious, report it to your bank or your credit card company right away.
And what about identity theft? Like, are there things that people can do to prevent that?
Yes, definitely. You can set up fraud alerts with the credit reporting agencies, and that'll basically notify you if there's any activity on your credit report. Also, you might want to consider putting a credit freeze on your files. That's a really good way to prevent anyone from opening new accounts in your name without your permission.
Yeah, I remember when I put a credit freeze on, I felt so much better, knowing that no one could just, open up a credit card or something in my name.
Yeah, it's a great tool. So yeah, I think the main takeaway here is you got to be informed, you got to be cautious, and if something seems off, trust your gut.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Be informed, be cautious, and don't be afraid to take action if you think something's wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. The more you know about these scams, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself.
Absolutely. Well, this has been quite the deep dive,
It has.
but a very important one. So hopefully everyone listening now feels a little bit more empowered to, spot these scams and avoid becoming a victim.
Yeah, that's the goal.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us.